Hey, welcome back to the Telethon. Hope you're donating now and often, and you know, call your friends, call a lifeline. Just reach into your wallet, take out like $5-10. Keep that for yourself and donate the rest. The Telethon, drugs, the musical, the Telethon. It's happening right now. I'm your host, Richard Troches. I'm learning so much. Right now we're talking about, I'm happy I have my pen, you know, I'm soon about to drink the ink out of it and eat the cap if I don't get some food and water. But I'm here for the duration, and I'm happy to be a part of it. We're talking about safe injection sites now. You know, I don't know what the problem is. Like, we're not asking for unsafe injection sites. So, you know, it's a no-brainer. I mean, holy Mackinac, guys. Like, just do it. This is ridiculous. If you can save lives, do it. Like, you know, we're keeping people safe and out of harm's way instead of, you know, injured and dead and or in a hospital. And like, what? Like, these are your children, right? Like, all these people are people's children and people's parents, and these are our people. Like, these are the people of Canada. This is what we're talking about. These are our people. Let's protect them for the love of God and country. Like, what are you missing? I don't understand. Like, harm reduction by definition is to support and fund this type of thing. Safe injection sites, safe supply. Like, I don't want some test lab, you know, pharmaceutical coming in. If I just trying to get my little stone on and have a little hoot, and you know, and then the next thing I know, I'm pterodactyl. You know, I don't. You know, that's not what I bargained for. I want to know what I'm chooching. You know, I don't want you know, I don't want to shrivel up like a Calgary raisin. That's crazy. We keep them safe, keep them healthy. This is ridiculous that we even have to be here in this day and age. I mean, you know, like, you want everyone dead? Okay, great. Now everyone's dead. Now who's going to buy your doubles down at the Timmy's? Hey, out of business. Hey, who's going to buy all your factory outlet furniture? Nobody, because they're dead. There's your commercial. Put your little, put a coroner suit on, and there's your cartoon. Nobody, because everybody's dead. Come on, man. You know, like, you have a real opportunity here, Canada, to do something and be a leader on the world stage for once in your stinking stolen life. Get up and do something that the whole world is proud of, and maybe they could follow suit and be like you for once instead of making fun of you. You know, they call you the apartment above the meth lab. Yeah, that's you. Yeah, that's not a nice thing. I know it's not a meth lab, but it's not. You have to picture, like, how nice could an apartment above a meth lab be? That's you. Not nice. You know, these are our children. Like, what else needs to be said? You know? These are our children that are dying. And, you know, and they're gone. And you get to live with that.
Yo, man, I wanna get fucking high, man, like fucking high. You know? I like the sky. I wanna get fucked up.
Let's get, like, temporarily
smoke this. Smoke that shit up. Smoke it deep. Smoke it deep. Hold it in. Hold that shit in. Smoke it deep. Hold it in. Now this is Mikhail Gorbachev's private vodka. Hold it in. Hold it in. It's cut with the formaldehyde left over from Marilyn Monroe's autopsy. Hold it in. I call this one the Dead Kennedy. You guys are gonna love it. you're gonna feel like an angel is giving you a BJ in your mind.
That's got your attention. Huh? Now you're paying attention. Huh? Now you're listening. Now you're thinking. Now you're using your fucking head.
But it's just not cutting it.
Not good enough, man.
Okay.
It's good.
You want a real trip? You want a real?
I want to get.
You want to really fuck your legs up? Here, snort this, man. Yeah. Smoke this 100 times, Selfie. Okay. All right. Okay. Hold it in. Ready? Little fuck your legs up.
Fuck, man.
Hello?
That's your mom's.
Oh no. This really isn't a good time.
You're tripping now, eh? Yeah? Yeah? You like that?
This is the original LSD. The original. It's called CIA. Huh? Huh?
What the hell?
Huh? Tripping? You tripping?
Here, have some of this. This is 100% Bolivian, uncut, mixed with John Belushi bone marrow. Right? Feeling that shit? Okay, put your hands up on the table. Here. Right here. Okay? Okay.
Holy shit, man. I think we crossed over. Oh man. You feeling that, eh? Come on, let's go. We're gonna go to the hospital, get a cab waiting. I got a guy's gonna get us a nitrous tank. We'll do some codeine, wrap our heads up real tight in tensor bandages, do some Novocaine. It's called the Phil Collins, because you're gonna be in the air tonight.
My friend Rob, he's a firefighter, and he worked hard at protecting our loved ones for many years. One day there was a terrible accident. He fell out of a window and he broke his back. And after multiple surgeries, he was prescribed pain medications, legal opioids that you would know as Oxycontin or morphine. Months later, when he was told by his physician that he should no longer use them for his pain, it was too late. His body was physically dependent, and he had become accidentally addicted. And with no program in place that would work for him, he turned to the only place he could, the street, where the drugs are unregulated and contaminated. And within 6 months, he lost his family, he was jobless, homeless, and suffered multiple overdoses. Stories like this happen a lot more often than people would think. They can start as a workplace injury, car accident, pain disorder, or trauma. Do you know that roughly 11 people will die today in Canada due to opioid use? That's over 300 a month, or nearly the equivalent to the 2 737 MAX 8 planes crashing every single month. And how many crashes did it take until they grounded that whole fleet worldwide? 2. So why hasn't this overdose crisis garnered the same action and attention when more people are dying? Let me ask you this. What were your first thoughts when I said overdose crisis? Usually when we hear words like opioid addict or overdose deaths, our minds gravitate to the drug user who's made visible to us through their struggles with poverty, homelessness, and mental health. It's the people we see presented through the media, on TV, or in the newspapers, the ones squatting in our communities, wearing down our first responders and resources. Isn't it these stories and images that create the villain out of substance users, and ultimately they paint the picture of who we believe the user possibly is? It's not the whole story. 200,000 Canadians experience homelessness at some point in any given year. But 6 million people will develop a substance use disorder at some point in their lifetime. That means there are millions of people suffering in addiction who don't fit the profile of the homeless user. That's a tremendous amount of isolation and suffering happening behind closed doors to people of all ages, all backgrounds, and all walks of lives. Would you also be surprised to learn that the vast majority of drug overdose deaths that occur in British Columbia happen in a private residence? That could be a house just like yours. Blue-collar people with careers, your fathers, mothers, your sons and daughters, your friends, and community leaders. So initially, who we pictured to be the face of substance users wasn't correct. I'm sure some of you might be asking yourselves right now, well, who is this guy? Well, you're right on one thing. My name's Guy. And I'm the guy that battled a drug addiction that lasted 33 years, and over 2 decades of it was spent in the downtown east side of Vancouver, where I was brought back to life multiple times. It would be rare for someone today to survive an addiction as long as I did. It's just a different time, and people are dying at an alarming rate. After years of recovering, I now work as the peer clinical advisor for the Overdose Emergency Response Center, the BC Centre of Substance Use, and Vancouver Coastal Health's Regional Addiction Program. My job is to advise on the overdose crisis, and not just within our province. I've also gone across the country. Who knew that my lived experience in addiction would turn into the equivalency of a master's degree and key resume skill? I'm almost positive there's an easier way to get a master's degree. I wouldn't recommend the route that I went. It's challenging. I also go into high schools and universities and educate your children and grandchildren on substance use. I also let them know of the Good Samaritan law so that they can call 911 as a life-saving intervention for a friend who's overdosing without fear of being arrested. I listen, and they tell me that they do know that fentanyl is in now many different drugs and that it can kill, but they still use drugs for either enjoyment or to fit in or to self-medicate from their anxiety, depression, pain. I watch tears fall as they share with me of a parent or a sibling who's died of a drug overdose or is struggling in active addiction. What has changed over the last 5 years are the drugs. Today's drugs are so deadly because organized crime groups alter them for huge financial returns. They can take $100,000 worth of fentanyl and other drugs and turn it into a multi-million-dollar profit. The revenue, staggering. And the drugs are like Russian roulette for anyone that uses them. This is impacting our communities with gun violence, housing unaffordability, drug addiction, overdose. It's having a tremendous impact on our healthcare and legal systems and every single taxpayer. But most importantly, these drugs are stealing our family and our friends. This is a complex issue requiring multiple options. Look, there will always be organized crime, and there will always be people using substances. However, we need to educate our youth earlier, and we need to apply safer alternatives to reduce the harms for people who are at risk. If you look at smoking, once the risks of smoking cigarettes were widely known, creative solutions were offered to smoking. One option was the nicotine patch. which eliminates the toxic chemicals caused by cigarettes, but while still giving smokers their addictive substance, nicotine. This patch is a safer alternative. Now, for a person who has a dependency to opioids, one solution could be to offer opioids through a prescription-based program. The missing component in harm reduction strategies is safer supply programs. But Guy, you ask, aren't you telling us that opioids are the problem? I am, when they're bought off the street. In this program, people would receive a medical evaluation staffed by healthcare workers and peers and then have access to safer opioids. People would know what they are receiving and be empowered to use safely, more safely than resorting to the contaminated, tainted drug market that they're forced to go to. I often say to myself when I hear the coroner's report, we're too late. People don't recover when they're not alive. Safer supply programs could be so much more. They could be that important first step in identifying an addiction or a substance use disorder. It could actually be the starting point in someone's recovering journey. Its wraparound services to healthcare and other treatment options make it a vital asset for anyone that uses the facility. This program has the potential to save lives, reduce criminal behavior, save taxpayers money, but change the narrative of this deadly epidemic. Switzerland is often regarded as one of the most successful and comprehensive models in assisting substance users in the world. And it includes prescription opioids and, in some circumstances, heroin. Moms Stop the Harm is an organization of mothers and families who have either lost a child to a drug overdose or have a child struggling in active addiction. I've met many of these moms. Then I hear these two words consistently. What if my son or daughter had access to this safe supply program that you talk about? What if that could have made the difference? I've been to many funerals of good young kids who came from wonderful families who slipped quickly into dependency from these deadly drugs. And with no safer supply program available that would work for them, they bought contaminated street drugs. Simply a tragic reality. Safer supply programs can be one solution that we can consider and support. If someone you love became accidentally addicted, like my fireman friend Rob, wouldn't you want them to have access to this program so that they had the chance at improving the quality of their lives? But we can also do more on our front end with our youth. What if we had earlier conversations around substance use with our children? For me, every week is Addictions Awareness Week. As a harm reduction and recovering advocate, and in the high school assemblies where I speak, I can tell by the innocence of the kids' questions that these specific conversations aren't always happening at home. Questions like, how can I help a friend? Why do people start? How come people can't stop? And are drug users bad people? And they're not talking about the homeless user. They're talking about a parent, family member, or friend that they know, which is a terrible burden for any child to bear alone. And sometimes it's us adults. If we don't show compassion and understanding towards people who struggle with substance use and addiction, it can actually hinder our own children who could be struggling or have questions from reaching out. How would you respond or react if your child wanted to have the conversation with you about drugs? Or how do you start that conversation? It's by simply asking if they're aware of the overdose crisis, how drugs have changed, and what it really means. Sometimes we think that if we have these conversations with our children, we'll be promoting substance use. Not so. By having open, honest, non-judgmental conversations with our children, we're actually giving them the tools they'll need to make good decisions and become a compassionate ally for others who are struggling. We want to prevent them from becoming the next overdose death and the next faces of addiction in years to come. We can all do this. Let's be part of the solution. After all, the idea of safer supply programs and earlier conversations are not toxic. Awareness. What a wonderful gift to pass on. Would you pass it on, please? Thanks for listening.
What I think we should do is get like a safe supply of heroin on the street to create that culture. I don't think we should have doctors prescribing. This is what got us into fucking trouble with Oxycontin and fentanyl and shit in the first place, right? Like, so I don't know, but I may be missing all sorts of information on that stuff. So I don't know. I don't think I don't understand why, again, we medicalize everything. We are so fucking terrified of giving people the right to fucking choose what they do with their lives. We get doctors to monitor it instead. Who the fuck are doctors? Doctors are just doctors. They're people. Most of them didn't sign up, to be that. And the ones that do, how much money they make? You know that when they stopped being able to charge fucking $15 a piss out of every junkie they knew, that some of their clinics collapsed financially. They were making so much money. And I just don't think that doctors get to be the fucking, why are they the moral line? Why is a doctor, I think people used to think that about priests too, but we've all sort of debunked that myth. I don't understand why we always go back and rely on these professionals that we idealize and we hand them the fucking reins. They're supposed to get us out of the fucking mess we're in. How about we just get testing kits everywhere and start fucking buying heroin and letting heroin come in from, I think I only think about Afghanistan, but I'm sure it grows other places, but let it come in and let people be drug dealers like they used to be. I still have a drug dealer. I will be a drug dealer. I'm fucking buying weed off of the government. What's the least pothead thing you could do? I don't get it. I don't like it. Stupid. It's embarrassing.
So choices you need. So again, right now in Alberta, we are removing safe injection sites. And then opiate related deaths are going up because of it, even though our government doesn't want to admit that's the cause. So I think a lot of people, you know, see safe injection sites, and I think I've gone over a lot of this as well. Just as like, why are we aiding addicts in getting high, right? We should not be doing that. But it's not as simple as that whatsoever. It's so, first of all, we cannot treat people who are dead. That is the biggest one. We cannot treat people who have died of opiate related deaths. But it also, like, the kind of backlash of it is really based around the individualistic system of, you know, you should be able to do this yourself. You know, we will only help you when you get better yourself, right? And that simply does not happen. Addiction, there's this Rat City experiment, which is pretty popular, but it's basically, you know, they gave rats a bunch of cocaine, but then they gave rats the choice of, you know, this wonderful community based around rats, and then gave them a choice of cocaine, and they always chose community. And it's just basically showing that the opposite of addiction isn't abstinence, it's community, right? And I was talking about this before, that trauma destroys the prefrontal cortex, which is all your executive functioning. The only way we can get that back is through support and community. The only way we can regrow those pathways is through having someone there. And so these safe consumption sites, they have multiple uses. So they have peer support, which is, you know, the basis of regrowing that prefrontal cortex is just human interaction, pure, kind human interaction. But it also helps with a bunch of things. So, you know, usually ours are in hospitals, right? So we can connect you with doctors, right? We can connect you with social work. We can connect you with psychologists, right? Because if we think of addiction in kind of all avenues, that being biological, psychological, spiritual, and social, we now can basically come at that problem at every angle and set you up at every level in that one place, right? Much harder to do when, you know, this person goes to a doctor in one place, goes to a psychologist in one other place, a social worker, and then they're all not communicating to each other. And again, you know, we do have these kind of boxes for each part, but they all overlap, and they all need to have kind of comprehensive treatment for this one individual. But it also, you know, we are like, if the injection sites allow for, you know, reduced diseases like Hep C, reduced mortality rates due to opiates, but also an influx of referrals as well. So just down to the statistics, they're working, right? And again, I would like to see a safe injection sites kind of, you know, I guess grow in the fact that all doctor offices are trained to do that. That way they can get their comprehensive care. And then also that huge argument against, oh, it's bringing crime to my community, then we're kind of negating that kind of argument as well, because we're not focusing in one place. We are dispersing it across the city. And that way we're also not kind of focusing on individuals, right? We're not putting the spotlight on them, that they're almost anonymous. They can go in, no one knows, right? Except for maybe the side effects of the drug after. But for the most part, no one knows that they're using the service. And I think that also allows people to feel like they belong in their community, right? That they're not just this, I guess, crime scapegoat that everyone's going to blame in the long run.
It's a little late for tears, isn't it, Barbara? Even though you didn't know it was going to happen today, you've still had your whole life to prepare for it. Of course, you've gotten into the habit of not being prepared. And now it's a little late, isn't it? You're a creature of habit, Barbara. We all are. Unfortunately, not all of your habits are good ones. This was how your day started. Started wrong. Your neighbor, Helen, is a creature of habit, too. But she got up when the alarm went off. Because, Barbara, that's what she really had in mind when she said it. Helen has trained herself to know what she's going to do, in what order, and where the things are to do it with. She really doesn't have to think about it. She already knows what clothes she's going to wear today. As it turned out, it was a special day for Helen, too. But she makes a habit of being ready for special days. She starts by having a place for things and keeping them there. She uses taste in selecting her clothes. But more than that, she keeps them clean and mended. And she's able to match the right skirt with the right sweater. This was going to be a special day for you, but you hadn't gotten very far with your preparations for it. Was your whole family asleep? No, your mother was up. Had been for an hour.
Barbara! Barbara, get up. You'll be late for school.
Does she have to do this every morning, Barbara?
Barbara, do you hear me?
If your mother stopped acting like a second alarm clock for even one day, you'd probably think it was a dirty...
Pete's sake, I hear you. I'm up.
You didn't seem at all appreciative. Even if you're not really well-mannered, you could make a habit of being civil. And you weren't really up when your mother called you. Little lies are such a firm foundation for big ones. You started your day with no plan at all. Looking for your hairbrush? Can't remember where you left it? You forgot other important things today. You meant to fix that collar, but you've gotten into the habit of putting things off. There are so many things you plan to do this coming Saturday or the one after that. Let's see. You found the algebra notebook you lost. The ski pants you meant to put away in the chest. The afghan you started to knit last summer. And oh yes, the sweater you were looking for. You decided to cover the spots on your sweater with a scarf. You often do that. But you can't forget that the spots are there. If you had a habit plan for your mornings, you might get off to a decent start someday. Helen has a habit plan, and it includes a healthy breakfast and a pleasant word with her parents. All three always enjoyed Mr. Elliott's comments on the news. It was time to get started for office and school. Helen's dad would drop her on the way downtown. And who could ask for a nicer way to go to school? Your brother was ready, but your father couldn't wait for you. Or you could have driven to school with him. He used to enjoy that drive, too. Your eggs were cold this morning, but you had no time to be picky about food or to think about your diet. No time for milk or even to say good morning. No time for manners. You made a pretty picture with your rumpled skirt, your spotted sweater, and your hair in a tizzy. As usual, all your neighbors knew how late it was when you went by at your regular dog trot. You were late for school this morning, but then you're almost always late, and you're guilty about it. More so because your lateness is habitual. You're in a rut with a bad habit, and the longer you stick with the habit, the deeper the rut gets. When you saw Helen, you suddenly felt envious. But more than that, you felt a distaste for your sloppy ways. And you knew you could do something about them if only... That wasn't a happy thought, was it? Or do you always drum with your fingers? You were just chatting away with Helen when it happened, when the day suddenly turned into something special. You've never been friends with Ann Tolliver, and you've always wanted to be.
Hi. Hi. Some of the crowd's coming over to my house right after school. Do you think you two could make it?
Well, that'd be fun, Ann. I'd love to.
Swell. Well, what do you say, Bobby? Sure, thanks. Okay, see you later.
Bye. That'll be fun, won't it?
Oh, yes.
Each school year sees new groups forming, old ones reforming. Yours is a changing social world, and the opportunities to be part of it must be taken when they arise. You knew this afternoon that you were making a bad impression, and you knew how easy it is not to be invited again, and how quickly you can be left out of the crowd. You were embarrassed by your messy hair and the fingernails you had neglected to clean. You worried about the spots on your sweater, Barbara. But what really showed up were your habits. You didn't find it very pleasant comparing yourself with the others.
What? I said, what do you think?
You weren't listening. You seldom do. It's a habit of yours.
I guess I don't know much about it.
They were talking about a popular book. All your friends were interested, but you never got into the habit of reading books.
The whole problem was that Claudia wanted to be free to do all the things she'd never been allowed to do.
Well, that was her whole reason for leaving her family. And then she married back to the same kind of lying.
Well, that's why I think the book's stupid. Why couldn't she have seen...
No, you added nothing to that conversation.
The trouble with me is getting started.
I always have to force myself to do new things.
I'm the same way. I didn't even want to go to my first concert because I thought it would be too long-haired. Oh, but the music is wonderful. I'm going to go to the whole series.
My mother had to drag me to the museum. But they have a wonderful costume exhibit there. I got an idea for a new dress.
Oh, what kind?
You've never taken an interest in music or politics or art.
We always go to the beach. Every year we take a cottage at Essex.
You've only been once.
There's wonderful swimming and lots of boys. It's quiet where we go. And there are tennis courts at the hotels, too, and dances every weekend. It sounds grand. And it's just a short way to the city.
You couldn't help interrupting, could you? And you couldn't help stretching truth like a rubber band. We all like to talk about ourselves. But a soliloquy isn't a conversation. First, you didn't talk at all, and then you did all the talking. Conversation is a two-way street. But for you, it's either one way or a dead end.
Goodbye. I hope you had a very nice night.
Thank you. I did. Bye.
See you tomorrow. Goodbye, Barbara. I hope you enjoyed yourself. Oh, thank you. Bye.
In all society, at all ages, we know that people are going to talk about other people. Unfortunately, our faults are often more discussed than our good points. And sometimes our good points are completely hidden by our faults. But perhaps worst of all is our own disappointment in ourselves and the remarks we imagine our friends are making about us.
Gee, I think dirty fingernails are horrible.
Maybe she felt shy. A spotted sweater isn't shyness. And bad manners are still bad manners no matter what you call them.
Now, in your own room, the memory of this day stands between you and your whole pattern of behavior. Where will you start? Your complexion? That starts with soap and water and goes on to regular meals and the right kind of food. Your hair? It's more than just a shampoo when you happen to think of it. Your clothes? Not just cleaned when your mother takes them away from you, but a system of cleaning. For all a pattern, a network of habits. Helen checks her clothes for cleaning when she takes them off. That's a habit of hers. This morning, Helen took her skirt from the front of the closet. Tonight, she hangs it in the back. That's a habit, too. One on the plus side. It gives clothes a chance to hang, rests the fabric. Tonight, Helen makes a plan for tomorrow. A what to wear, what to do, when to do it, design for living. Helen has the habit of being ready for special days. Good habits save time and energy and give us greater freedom to do those extra things we want to do. Yes, a good start. But these improvements are not yet habits, not by any means. They must happen again and again until they fit into the fabric of the days without conscious thought. If you try, really try, you can root out the poor, accidental habits and establish in their place the good habits approved by custom, accepted by society. Across the street, Helen's light goes out. Reasonable hours are part of her pattern.
And you, Barbara? Well, you've had a hard day. But staying awake to think about it won't help it any. Go to bed early for a change. Give yourself a good start on a new day.
Supervised consumption sites and overdose prevention sites are super important, especially right now. You know, they play a really important role in reducing overdose deaths. Thousands of overdoses every year are reversed in overdose prevention sites and supervised consumption sites. Here in Ontario, we were capped at 21 sites, that's like as many sites as we could have by the provincial government, the Ford government. We actually have more sites since COVID, though we don't talk about it, but they're in shelter hotels, the shelter recovery hotels. And they're, you know, people have been able to get the federal urgent health need exemption, which is actually the OPS exemption, which is actually what many of us fought for when we opened the first overdose prevention site in Ontario in a tent in Moss Park. You know, supervised consumption sites originally were around like having a safe space for someone to use, disease prevention, transmission of HIV and Hep C, but they have become an important role around overdose. I would also say that if it's a good site, that it also offers a place for people to get other kind of support. So what I love about Moss Park site is, you know, they offer a Hep C treatment nurse every week. They have a partnership with Breakaway where a worker comes in and works with women, especially around the loss of children to the state and like helping support women, you know, get connected with their kids again and offering other kinds of support. Also has midwives for reproductive health and pregnancy, and you know, becomes like a social space for people because using drugs is a social thing. I don't think supervised consumption sites need to be overly clinical because using drugs isn't a clinical experience, but they do play a really important role, and unfortunately they're not all funded. So like the supervised consumption site in Saskatoon, which has been running for like almost a year now, been running on donations. Also, governments are able to shut down supervised consumption sites, like what happened in Alberta or what's happening in Alberta. You know, Lethbridge, Calgary, Red Deer, like Edmonton. I mean, how are you shutting down injection sites unless you don't care about the lives of people? One of the things not talked about is the number of Indigenous people that use those sites. So Lethbridge, like the majority of people using the Lethbridge site are Indigenous. And to me, like a government making decisions, especially the racist conservative government of the UCP in Alberta, as if that's not racially motivated as well. They don't care about Indigenous lives. That's fact. The expansion, people have wanted them to expand in their communities and have not been able to. Like Peterborough has desperately wanted one for so long. They have really high rates of overdose. Sudbury, folks there have been running their own overdose prevention site for 2 years illegally, and like recently received trespass notices from their mayor, from their city, but then also have met with the mayor, and it looks like hopefully by the time this is released that they'll have gotten their overdose prevention site. But we shouldn't have to fight for an emergency intervention that we know is effective and has so much evidence attached to it and saves people's fucking lives. Like, we shouldn't have to fight for that. Like, that shouldn't have ever been a struggle. It should never have been something we had to fight for, because we know that there's so much evidence behind them. And they're not the end all. Like, that's just one part of what we need. Like, we also need safe supply projects. We need people to be able to get access to high dose opioids. That includes fentanyl, that includes heroin. It can't just be like divided programs, although those are good too. We need like a range of things for people. And some of our biggest barriers to getting those are actually like addiction doctors who, you know, don't want people to be getting drugs unsupervised. They want every dose supervised. They want it to be in these kind of like the Crosstown Clinic in Vancouver where every injection is supervised. But I don't think it needs to be. Like, people are not children, they're adults, and they should have autonomy and self-determination. And I think that kind of over-policing, over-punitive nature of those kinds of programs is why they also have high dropout rates of methadone and Suboxone, because it doesn't work to like force people to come to a clinic multiple times a day. Maybe works for some people, but if you want to do something that works for larger groups of people, it's just not going to work.
2020 and 2021 have been challenging years for literally everybody all over the world. But it's also been compounded by many much more difficult situations where people have taken street drugs and overdosed. If this is what you are going to be doing, please do not take them alone so that if something goes wrong, you have a fighting chance to be brought back. I cannot emphasize enough to you the devastation that we see as funeral directors on the families we serve that are surviving you. If you could see it with your own eyes, you'd never do it.
How you doing, Gare? I'm doing pretty good. How you doing, Bear? Pretty good, actually, yeah. Hey, what time of day is it again? Valentine's Day. Oh, that's right. That must be why we're having our big Valentine's Day sale. That's right. And this year, it's not just for the happily married types. No, it's not. We got a special sale on for all you sad Moses out there. Yes, we do. Oh, you don't have somebody? Whoa, you sad? Whoa. Here's an idea. Sports car. Great idea. You ever seen a sad guy driving around in a sports car? No. Me neither. You ever seen a lonely guy driving around in a sports car? Never. Never. That's right. Get yourself a sports car and then you get the girl. Great idea. So come on down to Lockport Marina this weekend for our big Valentine's Day sale and you get yourself a girl.
The simple question is if you adjust the pain.